learning point. Today we'll be learning the second part of metals and non-metals. In the previous video, we have already learned how to segregate metals and non-metals based on their physical and chemical properties. We have also learned what happens when a metal reacts with air, that is oxygen, and what happens when a metal reacts with acids, and what happens when metal reacts with water. So now, in today's video, we'll be learning what happens when metal reacts with a non-metal. What happens when metals react with non-metals. So for example, sodium. Sodium is a metal with atomic number 11. Sodium is a metal with atomic number 11 and the electronic configuration is 2, 8, 1. So it can be represented as 2 electrons in the K shell, 8 electrons in the L shell and 1 electron in the outermost shell. Then let us take chlorine. Chlorine is a non-metal with atomic number 17, electronic configuration 2, 8, 7. So now this can be represented as 2 electrons in the K shell, 8 electrons in the L shell, 7 electrons in the outermost shell. So now you already know the octet rule. Octet rule is a rule where the outermost shell must have 8 electrons, and thus when it has 8 electrons, that element or that compound becomes stable. So now Na has 1 electron in its outermost shell and chlorine has 7. So now when a metal reacts with a non-metal, the extra sodium gives away its extra electron to chlorine. So now when sodium donates its extra electron, now sodium becomes stable and chlorine becomes stable. So now it forms NaCl. NaCl. Now NaCl is an ionic compound. Ionic compound is formed when a metal reacts with a non-metal, and the bond formed between Na and Cl is called the ionic bond. NaCl is called as the ionic compound and the bond formed between Na and Cl, that is sodium and chlorine, is called as the ionic bond. Now let us learn the same with another example. Is magnesium. Magnesium is a metal with atomic number 12, electronic configuration 2, 8, 2. This can be represented as 2 electrons in the K shell, 8 electrons in the L shell and 2 electrons in the outermost shell. Let's take chlorine again. Chlorine is a non-metal with atomic number 17. The electronic configuration of chlorine is 2, 8, 7. So now two electrons in the K shell, 8 electrons in the L shell and 7 electrons in the outermost shell. So now chlorine requires one more electron. Chlorine requires one more electron to become stable. But magnesium has 2 electrons to donate. So now magnesium has 2 extra electrons which it has to donate. Chlorine requires only 1 electron. So it donates one of its electron to chlorine and it still has another electron. So it donates its another electron to the other chlorine. So thus it forms MgCl2, magnesium chloride. So this is called the ionic compound where a metal reacts with non-metals and the bond formed between magnesium and chlorine is what we call the ionic bond. So now let us learn the properties of ionic compounds. Firstly, we learn the physical nature of ionic compounds. Physical nature. So generally, ionic compounds are brittle in nature. Ionic compounds are generally brittle in nature. So they are not as hard as metals but are not so soft as non-metals also. So when pressure is applied, they can still be broken. Ionic compounds have high melting and boiling points. So this is because ionic compounds have strong force of attraction between the positive and negative ions, and that is why it has high melting and boiling points. Solubility. Next, solubility. So, ionic compounds are substances which are soluble in solvents like water, but they are not soluble in some of the solvents like petrol, kerosene. Next, conduction of electricity. Conduction of electricity. Ionic compounds conduct electricity in their molten state but not in either of the three states of solids, liquids or gases. So quick summary. The physical nature of ionic compounds are that they are generally brittle in nature. But when pressure is applied, they can be still broken. Ionic compounds have high melting and boiling points due to the strong force of attraction formed between the positive and negative ions. Solubility. Ionic compounds are generally soluble in solvents like water but not in petrol or kerosene. Ionic compounds generally conduct electricity in their molten state but not in any of the three states of solids, liquids and gases. So, moving on, we have occurrence of metals. We all know that the Earth's crust is a major source of minerals. Seawater also contains a lot of soluble salts like sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, right? C. Elements or compounds that occur naturally in the Earth's crust are called as minerals. Elements or compounds that occur naturally in the Earth's crust are called as minerals. Elements or compounds that occur naturally in the Earth's crust are called as minerals. And at some places, these minerals contain large amount or large percentage, a huge percentage of a particular metal. And that metal can be profitably extracted from it. Such minerals are called ores. When some of the minerals contain high amount or large percentage of a particular metal and that metal can be profitably extracted from these minerals, then they are called as ores. So now let us learn the process of the extraction of metals from the most reactive to the least reactive. Potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, lead, copper, silver, gold. So potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, these are the most reactive metals and are found in the Earth's crust. But when they are found in the Earth's crust, they are never in the free state or in their native state. They are always mixed up. So they are reduced to, or they are made like into their original form by a process known as electrolysis. Zinc, iron, lead, copper. So these are the moderately reactive metals which are found in the Earth's crust in the form of sulfides, oxides and carbonates. So moderately reactive metals are found in the Earth's crust in the form of their sulfides, oxides or carbonates. So these are reduced by carbon. So next we have silver and gold. Silver and gold are unreactive. Silver and gold are they are the least reactive metals. They are most unreactive and the least reactive. So silver and gold are found in their native state. When they are found in the Earth's crust, they are found in their native state. So potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, these are the most reactive metals and must be reduced to their native state or to their original form by a process called electrolysis, and these are moderately reactive metals zinc, iron, lead and copper found in their form of their sulfides, oxides or carbonates and must be reduced by carbon. And silver and gold are always found in their native state because they are the least reactive metals. So now let us learn the different processes of how to extract metals, ranging from the lowest reactive to the most reactive. Next, we have extracting metals low in the activity series. So generally, the metals which come low in the activity series are very unreactive. HGS is called cinnabar. Cinnabar is an ore of mercury. Cinnabar is an ore of mercury. So now HGS, this is reduced by heating to mercuric oxide. Now mercuric oxide, only by producing heat, mercuric oxide is reduced to mercury and oxygen. So only by heating we can reduce mercuric oxide to mercury and oxygen. So this is how we extract metals low in the activity series. So now extracting metals middle in the activity series. So metals such as iron, zinc, lead, copper, etc. These are moderately reactive metals. They come under middle. So they are in the middle of the activity series. Not most, not least. They are moderately reactive. So these metals are generally found in sulfides or carbonates. Are generally found in their sulfides or carbonates. In sulfides or carbonates. So it is easier to extract a metal from its oxides rather than its sulfides and carbonates. So therefore, prior to reduction, what we do is we convert the sulfides and carbonates into oxides. So sulfides are converted into oxides by heating strongly in the presence of air, and that process is called as roasting. When sulfides are heated excessively in the presence of air, it is called as roasting. For example, zinc sulfide is heated in the presence of air. Heat in the presence of air, it forms zinc oxide. So next, carbonates. Carbonates are converted into their oxides by heating strongly in the absence of air or in a limited presence of air. That process is known as calcination. Carbonates are converted into oxides by providing a limited amount of air or in the absence of air by excessive heat. So that process is known as calcination. zinc carbonate. Zinc carbonate in the presence of heat is converted into zinc oxide. So now, when already it is in the oxide form, zinc oxide. So now ZnO, zinc oxide plus carbon gives zinc plus CO. So now we have got zinc in its natural native state. So this is how metals are extracted when they are found in the moderately reactive or middle in the activity series. Sulfides, carbonates. Sulfides are like they are converted into oxides when in the presence of air and with lot of amount of heat produced. That process is known as roasting, and carbonates are converted into their oxides by a process known as calcination, where strong amount of heat is produced but limited amount of air or in the absence of air. So roasting, calcination and then reduction. Moving on, we have extracting metals towards the top of the activity series. The top of the activity series. So, the metals which are placed at the top of the reactivity series are very reactive. They are the most reactive metals. So, they cannot be reduced to their native state only by using carbon because they have more affinity for oxygen than carbon. Affinity means attraction. So, they are more attracted towards oxygen than carbon. So, now they can be reduced to their original or native state by a process called electrolytic reduction. Electrolytic reduction. Electrolytic reduction. So, this electrolytic reduction is one where the metals such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium. So the highly reactive metals are in their molten states, and when at the cathode, see for example we take sodium. So at the cathode sodium is formed and at the anode the chlorine gas is given away. So now we have got the native, the original form, the free state of sodium. See, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium. These are the most reactive metals. So for example, when we take sodium, at the cathode, due to electrolytic reduction, at the cathode, sodium is deposited. The sodium in its free state it is deposited at the cathode, and at the anode, chlorine gas is liberated. So this is a process of electrolytic reduction where we get the metals, the highly reactive metals or the most reactive metals at the cathode, and at the anode gases are released. When we use the reduction processes that we discussed earlier, the metals are not in their pure state. They are not found as pure metals. So they contain some of the impurities which have to be refined. Metals have to be refined to become pure. One of the most widely used process of refining is called the electrolytic refining. It's called as the electrolytic refining. So, when different reduction processes are used, the metals are not found in their pure state. They are mixed with some of the impurities which have to be removed. And electrolytic refining is one of the most widely used method for refining the metals. See, silver. Silver turns black in color when it reacts with sulfide present in air and forms silver sulfide. Copper. Copper reacts with carbon present in nature and forms copper carbonate, which is green in color. Copper carbonate. And next, iron. Iron forms a brown flaky coating, which we call rust. So, these are the cases where corrosion occurs. There are many ways in which corrosion can be prevented. So now let us learn the different ways of prevention of corrosion. There are so many ways of preventing corrosion. Painting, oiling, greasing, galvanizing, chrome plating, anodizing and making alloys. So these are the various methods by which corrosion can be prevented. Galvanizing. Galvanizing is a process of painting a layer of zinc on iron. So zinc does not allow iron to react with oxygen present in the air, and thus it does not allow the formation of the brown flaky coat. So this is why galvanizing is used in the prevention of corrosion. Making alloy. Alloy is a homogeneous mixture. Alloy is a homogeneous mixture where a metal plus a non-metal or metal and a metal, they are mixed together. See, generally metals are not used in their pure state. They are always mixed with other substances so as to have a better strong life or a long life. So even iron is mixed with a definite amount of 0.5% of carbon to make it strong enough, because pure iron is soft and can be easily stretched when hot. That is why carbon is added. So alloy is a homogeneous mixture where metal and a non-metal or a metal and a metal are mixed in definite proportions. So how it is made? Firstly, the primary metal is melted. The primary metal is melted and the next or the other metal or the non-metal is added to it in definite proportions, and then this is made to cool down to room temperature. So primary metal is first melted and then definite proportions of the other metal is added into it, and then it is made to cool down to room temperature. This is how alloys are made. This brings us to the end of the chapter, metals and non-metals. I hope you like this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask them freely in the comment box. Like, share and subscribe to my channel RV's Learning Point for more such interesting videos.